A river of life. Ancient Egypt was a desert country. It was also one of the first and greatest civilizations on earth. How could this be? There are two marvelous things about ancient Egypt. One is its long history that began 5,000 years ago. The other marvel is the Nile River. Ancient Egypt depended on the Nile River for almost everything. The country was mostly desert, but the Nile River flowed through this desert. Where the water flowed, the desert was green. The river flowed every year. The flood left mud on the riverbank. Early Egyptians called this mud black land. They grew fine crops on it. Beyond this black land was a desert area. They called that area red land. It almost never rained there. The Egyptians dug canals and ditches to carry water from the river to their black land. They grew mostly barley and went on the black land. Another important crop was lettuce, and everyone liked to eat lettuce. They also used the lettuce to sweeten their food. Farmers raised cattle, sheep, goats, dogs, and geese up for food too. Ships carried the farm products along Great River. It was like a highway, but both not trucks carried the merchandise and the people. The ancient Egyptians traveled mainly by the riverboat. The settlers were paid with grain. When their ship docked, they traded their grain for clothing, fresh fruit, and vegetables. The river was the home of many types of fish and animals, such as hippos and crocodiles. Along the edges of the river there were marshes. Papyrus and lotus plants grew in the marshes. There were also many kinds of birds. The rivers only water for drinking and washing. Egyptian men usually did the laundry because the women were afraid of the crocodiles in the river. The ancient Egyptians had powerful leaders. They were called pharaohs. The people believed that all pharaohs were god king. They believed that the god king controlled the flowing and brooding of the Nile. They also believed that every 24 hours the great sun god Amun sailed across the sky. At night he sailed through the underworld of the spirit and emerged at sunrise each day. The Egyptians believed in life after death, so it was important to preserve the dead body. The hot, dry climate of Egypt helped to preserve the bodies. People rubbed the bodies with oil and preservatives. Then they wrapped the bodies in cloth. These bodies were called mummies. The mummies were placed in beautifully decorated coffins. The coffins were placed in large stone boxes. The stone boxes were placed inside large tombs. The largest tombs in ancient Egypt were the Great Pyramid. Even today, people marveled at these huge structures. A stone of the pyramid were cut from cleanly floor of the Nile River. Carpenters built large rafts to carry stones to the building sites. It took a long time to complete the pyramid. The largest of them is called the Pyramid of Khufu. It's the largest stone building in the world. It took 20 years to complete it. Thousands of people pulled and lifted its giant stones into place. In 1954, archaeologists found a wooden boat. It was buried beside the Pyramid of Khufu. Archaeologists believe that it carried the body of the pharaoh Khufu along the Nile River to the pyramid. Other huge stones were carried along the river to build the Sphinx. It had the head of a man and the body of a lion. The Sphinx, called the Great Pyramid, represents the power of the pharaoh. We know about ancient Egyptian history because the Egyptians left us record of their lives. True, this was a long time ago. Most people had no system of writing at that time. The Egyptians did have such a system. Like the Chinese, the Egyptians used pictographs. People used pictures to communicate. Later, they simplified these pictures until they became writing language. Even Egyptian writing depended on the Nile River. People used papyrus to write on. Papyrus was a kind of paper. It was made from the plants along the shores of the Nile River. Geometry, one of our school mathematics subjects, came to us from the Egyptians too, and it also came from the Great River. The Nile flood changed the shapes and the size of fields almost every year. That made it difficult to collect taxes. The tax collector had to know the size of the fields to collect the correct taxes. It was very difficult to find out what the exact size of the fields were, so the Egyptians invented geometry. Geometry helped them measure the fields. The Nile only helped to globally on one of mankind's early civilizations. What a great river!
Okay, what's the title?
On River of Life.
Okay. So everyone touch it.
The river flowed every year. The fruit left mud on the river. When early Egyptians called this mud black land, they grew fine crops on it. Beyond this black land was a desert area. They called that area red land. They almost never rained there. The Egyptians dug cows and ditches to carry water from the river to their black land. They grew mostly barley and red on the black land. Another important crop was dates. Everyone liked to eat dates. They also used the dates to sweeten their food. Farmers raised cattle, sheep, goats, dogs, and geese for food too. 14초.
24?
네.
고등학생이네.
아직 고등학생.
2초 빨랐으면 되는데.
네? 이렇게요?
2초 빨라.
이것만 안 해서도 됐는데.
Page 6. What is one of the first civilizations?
Ancient Egypt was a desert country. It was also one of the first and greatest civilizations on earth.
오케이. 문명 첫 번째 문명 그 영어로 뭐라고?
One of the first civilization.
Civilization. When did Egypt's history begin?
That began 5,000 years ago.
What did Egypt depend on?
Egypt depended on the Nile River for almost everything.
What is different where the water flows?
Where the water flowed, the desert was green.
What did the floods leave?
The floods left mud on the riverbanks.
What did the Egyptians grow on the mud?
They grew fine crops on it.
What did the Egyptians dig?
The Egyptians dug canals and ditches to carry water from the river to their black land.
What else did farmers raise?
Farmers raised cattle, sheep, goats, dogs, and geese for food too.
Okay, page 10. What did ships carry?
Ships carried the farm products along the Great River.
Okay. 이제 수출을 했던 그 유명한 그 항구는 그 위쪽에 알렉산드리아라는 항구 도시가 있었어. 거기서 배에 실어서 이제 대서양을 통해서 여러 나라로 수출. How did the Egyptians travel?
The ancient Egyptians traveled mainly by riverboat.
What grew in the marshes?
Papyrus and lotus plants.
Who did the laundry?
Egyptian men usually did the laundry.
그치. What are the Egyptian leaders called?
They were called pharaohs.
Okay, pharaohs.
Pharaohs.
What did the people believe about the pharaohs?
The people believed that all pharaohs were God kings.
What did the sun god do every 24 hours?
The great sun god Amun sailed across the sky.
Why did the Egyptians preserve dead bodies?
Because they believed in life after death.
Okay, so what is important?
It was important to preserve the dead body.
Right, page 14. What did they call the red bodies?
Mummies. These bodies were called mummies.
What are the largest tombs in Egypt called?
The largest tombs in ancient Egypt were the Great Pyramids.
How did they move the stones from the quarry from the building sites?
The stones of the pyramids were cut from a cleanly floor of the Nile River.
그러니까 어떻게? How did they move it?
Carpenters built large rafts to carry stones to the building sites.
What is the name of the largest pyramid?
It's called the Pyramid of Khufu.
Okay, page 16. How long did it take to make the Pyramid of Khufu?
It took 20 years to complete it.
What did archaeologists find in 1954?
Archaeologists found a wooden boat.
What did the Sphinx look like?
It has the head of a man and the body of a lion.
What did the Sphinx do?
The Sphinx guard the Great Pyramids.
Okay, page 18. Did most people have a system of writing at the time?
Yes. Most people.
Do they have system of writing?
No, most
time?
people had no system of writing at that time.
그렇습니까?
했어. 쓸 방법이 없었다.
문자 시스템이
없었다.
당시 없었다는 거지. What did people use to communicate?
People use pictures to communicate.
What did people write on?
Later, language.
랭귀지에다가 썼어?
네.
랭귀지에다 어떻게 썼냐? 랭귀지는 보이지 않는데 랭귀지에다가 어떻게 써?
Papyrus.
어?
Papyrus.
What did people write on?
People use papyrus to write on.
파피루스지 우리가 말할 때는 파피루스인데 영어로 어떻게 읽어?
Papyrus.
에? 영어로 어떻게 읽어? 거기
Papyrus.
몇 나왔지? Papyrus.
Papyrus.
What is it?
Papyrus was a kind of paper.
What is it made from?
It was made from one of the plants along the shores of the Nile River.
Okay. Next page. What did the Nile floods do?
The Nile fruits change the shape and the size of fields almost every year.
What did the tax collectors need to know?
The tax collector had to know the size of the fields to collect the correct taxes.
오케이. 이거 뭐 하려고?
세금을 거두려고.
거두기 위해서 뭐 알아야 돼?
땅의 크기를 하는.
그래야 되는데 어떻게 돼?
근데 이게 한번 쓸어버리면 바로 땅이.
계속 바뀐단 말이야. 그러니까 골치 아프지?
네.
세금을 걷어야 되는데. 그래서
지금 기하학을 만들어서.
그래, 그래서 그 학문이 발달한 거야, 거기서. How did geometry help the Egyptians?
Geometry helped them measure the fields.
Okay. Measure.
Measure.
뭐 한 거야?
측정하는.
측정한 거야? 뭘로 측정했어?
기하학.
매를 가지고 측정. 매죠. 뭐야? 이걸로 뭘 할 거야? measure.
측정할 거야.
Is the Nile a great river?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it is.
지금 여기가 근데 이집트예요? 마지막에 나온 사진이?
이집트 카이로 아니야? 수도?
아, 나일강 현재 모습.
나일강의 모습이구만.
이렇게 발전하다니.
어떤 도시인지는 모르겠다.